Hi everyone, my name is Daniela and welcome back to Mike by FIU. Today I'm joined by Ari Applebaum, an influencer marketing consultant, and today we'll talk about her journey and in the industry and what influencer marketing looks like in today's digital era. We're so happy you're here.
Thanks for having me.
To start, can you tell us your story? What first pulled you into influencer marketing and was there a moment that you realized, okay, this is it?
Yes, so I've been in influencer marketing for a very long time when influencers were first called bloggers. I worked at an agency where we would work with street style, lifestyle bloggers to create blog posts that would link out their various outfits back to the brand's website. And we were starting to get analytics and traction, and we're able to sell product in that way. Instagram stories were not a thing at that time. And I thought it was really interesting how you could use an influencer to create a post about their experience or their outfit or their trip or a home cooking recipe and drive an audience in and get them to buy, unlike traditional marketing where whether it was linear TV or radio or something like that. And there weren't a lot of brands necessarily working in that way yet. And I thought it was really, really interesting how you could drive sales and engage an audience in a non-traditional way. And for the most of my career, I've stayed on that trajectory of working with formerly bloggers, now influencers in a lot of different ways for a lot of different brands.
Oh my god, I love it. I know we were talking about the OG YouTuber era.
Yeah.
I personally consumed that a lot as a kid. And also I personally consume a lot of influencer content and I realized how that affects and how influence I get. I shop and it affects my purchasing decisions. When you're choosing which influencers to work with, what do you look for beyond follower count and why are those factors important to you?
Yeah, so surprisingly, probably to some, I don't want to say I don't care about follower count, but that's not a key metric that I look for. I'm much more interested in an engaged audience and beyond just a traditional engagement rate. I'm interested in saves, shares, comments. Is the influencer creator actually able to build a community? Are they engaging with their followers? Are their followers genuinely interested in what they're sharing and what they have to say? Or are the comments very spammy? Are they bots? Are they completely off topic? And I think to me, I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, an influencer with 300 followers and each one of those followers engaging is much more impactful and beneficial than somebody with 500,000 followers and only 1% of those people engaging.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay, can you walk us through what outreach actually looks like behind the scenes from the first contact to the partnership and how you make a collaboration stand out so influencers are genuinely excited to be part of the partnership?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to I don't want to say you can always find an influencer to promote something. I think it's really looking for a brand fit and an audience fit. I think a lot of times there is, at least in the way that I work, I don't automatically, when I'm reaching out to an influencer, just say, hey, I'm looking to partner with you on behalf of these brands. These are the deliverables, and this is how much the budget is, or what is your budget. I like to reach out in a more, I'll say, vague, high-level way and start a conversation and relationship building and saying, would you ever use this product? How would you use this product to understand if there is genuine interest? From start to finish of a campaign, working directly with a client, it's building the list and vetting against a lot of different parameters and getting approval from the client. Outreaching and negotiating, working through the contracting process, the redlining process, and really understanding that everybody is aware of what they're signing up for and what the terms are. Working on the briefing. I like to always say briefing is very important, but I think a lot of times, sometimes brands, and I'll talk about this more later, get lost in sticking to these specific talking points and this scripting. And I really like to think about when you're hiring an influencer or a creator to promote your brand or your product, think of them as the creative director and you are essentially paying them as that extension of your brand. I think when you start to talk about, you know, say this, say that, script it this way, it starts to feel really not genuine and not organic, for lack of a better term. So once we've briefed creators, we review creative concepts and give minor feedback, approval, or edits, and then the creators go into creating the content, shooting the content, and delivering it to the brand for approval, where the brand can weigh in on different creative elements, and then we get approval, and then we work with them to get it live on their socials, and then work with the brands to get various usage for their paid channels.
That's great. I feel like each influencer has like its own essence, and like I feel like some people, especially me, like I find comfort in some influencers. Like I consume their content so much that I feel like they're my friend, even though we don't even know. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that's such like a unique aspect, and that like follows my next question. Like, what skill that truly makes someone stand out in influencer marketing but doesn't get talked like enough?
And you're saying from the
like when you're trying to work with an influencer, like what makes that influencer stand out from the rest?
Yeah, so I think similar to also when someone's working in influencer marketing, I think a lot of influencer marketing is based on relationship building. So moving away from like purely transactional, and again, understanding like, is there genuine interest in the brand, in the product, creating a relationship with them around the deliverables and the speaking points to really build that out. I also think that this should be a given, but working with kind people is a lot easier than working with demanding and less kind people. And I think that somebody, specifically influencers that view it as a job versus kind of like a side gig where they're respectful of timelines and deliverables and feedback, makes a working relationship a lot easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what's the biggest mistake you see brands make when reaching out to influencers, and how could they do better?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of times, or I see brands treating kind of outreach as like a cold sales opportunity again versus relationship building, and looking at how is the relationship beneficial to each party, and how can you bring that partnership to life, and moving away again from like more transactional and generic versus relatability and actual organic use case. And then I think I spoke about this before, but when it comes to briefing, I think there are still so many times brands are given the brief and it's telling the influencer exactly like what to say, how to say it, and how to position it, versus giving key talking points, do's and don'ts, and really letting the influencer use their creativity to deliver on the content.
And now, looking ahead, where do you see influencer marketing evolving in the next 3 to 5 years, and what should students be paying attention now?
Yeah, so I think we've already seen this shift a little bit, but I think, there's always the conversation of like, what happens when TikTok goes away? What happens when Instagram goes away? So I think that influencers are always looking for additional revenue streams, and whether that's making a physical product and selling it, doing a lot of collaborations. And I think that my clients, even specifically, where there is a lot of interest for brand partnerships, I think that there's a lot of focus on the paid media aspect around it, of how can you amplify the content beyond the influencer's organic channels to reach a different audience. So I think there's going to also be a much bigger shift into creating like paid partnership content for whitelisting.
Yeah, I remember like the time, I don't know if you remember, maybe you do, like when Vine like shut down.
Yeah.
And I know like a lot of creators in there, like they were like panicking because they didn't know like what to do next. And I feel like that could happen like at any point. Like the time that TikTok almost like got banned, oh my god, that was insane. So like, do you feel like influencers need to like have more like interactions like human to human, like how to promote like a product or like a brand in that way? Or do you think like it should be like their own essences on like on a digital platform?
I do think that in-person interaction is always great and a great way to be an extension of their own brand or on behalf of a brand. But I also really think diversifying how they show up online. So not putting all of their eggs, if you will, in one basket. And now with Substack, I have a lot of like clients that are asking, how do we create Substack content? How do we build affiliate partnerships into that? How do we use YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and just really diversifying how they're bringing content to life versus solely relying on one platform in the event that something does change or go away.
Okay, I also wanted to ask, like, I know a lot of people want to be like influencers and start creating content. And from your perspective, and like what you do as a job, like, what do you think it's like the best advice you can give someone if they want to like stand out and start like doing content, being an influencer, and brands to like notice them?
Yeah, so I think we are in the age of everybody wants to be an influencer, and I think that there is room for everyone to be an influencer. What I'd really say is to be organic and lean into your skill set. So if you have a genuine interest in gardening, really lean into that, and don't also try to become a fashion influencer and a music influencer. And I would say really just showing up, and then also taking feedback from the community you are trying to create, because at the end of the day, it's your community that is supporting you.
Okay, and the last question before we go to the rapid fire questions, what advice will you give to like college students or like your college self, like of like getting into this world of marketing with influencers? What's one advice you will give to you or to someone?
Yeah, so I would say not even related to influencer marketing, although it's a big skill, I'd say in influencer marketing is relationship building. I think that also putting yourself out there, you never know whether that's reaching out to someone on LinkedIn and saying, can I treat you to a virtual coffee, and sending them a $5 Starbucks gift card to pick their brain, if you will, if they're at a brand or a company that you want to work with, or sending a thank you email for somebody that you ran into that gave you some advice or something like that. I always think, even for me, when I speak to certain people or I'm doing things like that, I always go back to those individuals first. So I really think just like relationship building and putting yourself out there, because you never know whether it's that person moves to the job you want, or that person has a friend that can help you with a different project. So
Okay, that's great. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the rapid fire questions, and you're going to try to answer them in one sentence.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one, what trends should brands and creators start preparing for now?
I would say looking into Substack and how to amplify your brand or your presence across Substack.
Okay, amazing. What's one influencer trend you like and one you're glad is over?
It's a good question. Come back to me on that one.
Okay. Who's your dream influencer to work with?
So I would like to work with Grandma Dronick on TikTok. She has a very large following, which I'm always very amused by, like 15 million followers or something, and she's like 89 years old. I have just yet to find a client or brand that is eagerly looking to work with a grandmother.
Oh my god, that's so unique. I've never expected for you to say that. What's one mistake you see influencers make over and over?
I think this is more like transactional, but not viewing it as a job, respecting deadlines, and kind of just, being very casual about.
So now we're moving on to the questions that members submitted.
Okay.
So do you think the oversaturated influencer market will create a new type of role?
I don't think it will. You're saying influencer marketing is becoming overly saturated?
Because I know like some influencers like post a lot. Like, like maybe they can post like 3 videos a day. Like that's like getting oversaturated. Like what do you think about that?
I think that everyone is always worried about the algorithm. And, if they post too much, they post too little, will they stay relevant? But I think in terms of oversaturation, as long as you stay true to yourself and your brand, then I think that is still genuine, and you don't need to worry about being oversaturated from a content standpoint.
Is consistency a main factor when looking for a creator?
I think consistency is important, especially when a brand is looking to work with a creator. You don't want to work necessarily with someone that every other post is sponsored, but you also want to partner with somebody that is consistently creating content and sharing content, and there isn't like either like a huge lull in their page or it's very sporadic, but striking that balance between organic content and branded content.
Okay, great. How do you turn one campaign into a long-term ambassador relationship?
So I'm of the belief where I like to go out. It's kind of more of a negotiation tactic, but I like to go out instead of asking for, like, what's your rate for one post versus what's your rate for 3 posts or 5 posts. And already upfront, influencers traditionally will give you a discounted rate for bundling, which then allows you to go in at a cheaper rate, but then you can also test different content. I think it's a hard judgment to make when you work with somebody for one piece of content or one post and you solely base performance around that. So I always like to go in with at least 2 or 3 posts and look at different analytics or different KPIs, and then build out longer term partnerships. Also from the viewer standpoint, a influencer that is able to work with a brand in the longer term capacity, it becomes much more genuine, much more organic, and much more fulfilling for both parties.
What has been the most impactful trend or strategy that you have seen has worked the most?
So I was formerly at Tonal, which is a connected fitness brand, leading their influencer and celebrity work. And contrary to, I think, what a lot of people are like, we have to work with macro influencers and the biggest following and celebrities. We created a program that focused on nano and micro influencers, knowing that their audiences are highly engaged and really value what they say. And through that, we were able to create like a content program, if you will, of like always on creators that became long-term brand ambassadors, where we were able to use the content across paid social, website, email, out of home, because one, we were able to keep costs down, but we were able to justify the value of the content. And then I've been able to replicate that type of programming for other brands and have seen similar success.
Wow. Okay. What separates a successful influencer campaign from one that just performed decently?
I think really it's different for every campaign, but I think really understanding what the goals are and setting benchmarks. I think where you run into trouble is not knowing what the goals are, so you're not able to identify what is successful and what is not successful. I think, if you ask any brand, they'll tell you they want sales.
Obviously.
But I think that sales, you can definitely create sales, but like if you're a brand new brand launching in the marketplace, or you're less well known, it's much more, I'll say, like upper funnel activity where it's brand awareness. And if you're expecting sales and conversions and you're only getting brand awareness, you would say that it's a failed campaign. So I really would say that it's different for every campaign, but identifying what the goals are and then optimizing your strategy and who your partners are towards those goals can create a successful campaign.
That's amazing. Okay, so the last question is, what's one skill that makes someone valuable on an influencer marketing team?
I would say a few different things. Again, like relationship building, adaptability. I think influencer marketing is always changing, especially from the client side also. There's always a different request, or you always need to pivot. So I think that someone that's able to adapt and change very easily, and then someone really that's just like a team player and is open to, understand how to get the work done, come up with different ideas, and really like support the greater group to get campaigns live and makes them successful.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Mike by FIU. Thank you for listening and for spending your time with us. New episodes drop every Tuesday on Spotify and YouTube, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen or watch. And to stay up to date on future episodes, behind the scenes moments, and everything mic'd, follow us on Instagram at AMAFIU. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to share with a friend who might find it helpful. I was your host for today, and we'll see you next time on Mic'd by FIU.